Welcome to another deep dive, and today we're going deep into the world of dreams.
Oh.
Like, what does a white monkey on a pedestal even mean? And don't even get me started on that weird dream I had about a dark oval stone, right?
Aha. Right.
Well, today we're going to unlock the secrets of dream symbolism with, of course, the OG dream interpreter himself, Carl Jung.
It's like getting a decoder ring for your unconscious.
Exactly. And to help us decode, we've got some awesome source material. We've got Jung's own book, Man and His Symbols, and then some cool notes on the peeps he worked with. Oh, and some wild anecdotes about dream analysis in action.
And the real mission here, like the big picture, is to connect the dots between these really personal, individual dream experiences and the bigger picture of like what makes us tick, the human psyche. Jung didn't see dreams as just random brain stuff, but as these messages from, well, a deeper part of ourselves, the unconscious.
So not like a dream dictionary where like a cat always means bad luck or whatever.
Right, exactly. It's way more nuanced than that. Jung thought every symbol was deeply personal, depending on the dreamer's own life, their experiences, the whole context.
Okay, so let's talk about the unconscious then. What is it, and why did Jung think it was so important?
Imagine like a huge, vast ocean, totally unexplored, teeming with life and mystery. That's how Jung saw the unconscious. It's not just where we shove down all those thoughts we don't like. It's like a source, like a wellspring of creativity, wisdom, potential.
Okay, so not just like a closet for our skeletons then.
Haha, exactly. And Jung was convinced that ignoring the unconscious, like turning our backs on it, was like ignoring a huge part of who we are, like walking around with half a map.
Okay, I'm starting to see why we need the full map. So how do we tap into this unconscious world? I mean, Jung thought dreams were the key,
Right.
right?
Dreams are like a direct line, through
Yeah.
the unconscious. And if we can understand what they're saying, well, that's where we start understanding ourselves better, unlock our potential and even navigate the challenges of life way more effectively.
But how do we even begin to understand this language? I mean, dreams are so like notoriously hard to figure out.
Well, that's where archetypes come in. They're like these universal, instinctual patterns of thought and behavior. And they show up in dreams, obviously, but also in myths and stories from all over the world and all different cultures. Jung thought they were like blueprints for common human experiences, like, the hero, the trickster, the wise old man, the mother figure, that sort of thing.
So like a hero fighting a dragon in some ancient myth could represent overcoming a personal challenge in real life.
Precisely. Or say you dream about being lost in a huge crowd, could be tapping into that feeling of being alone, even when surrounded by people, by overwhelming social forces.
So these archetypes are like a framework, a way to understand the language that dreams speak.
Yes. And when we start to recognize them, we start to see how our very personal dreams connect to, well, to the bigger human experience. Like we're all in this together kind of thing.
One archetype that I always find super interesting is the shadow. It's like our dark side, right? All the things we try to hide
Yeah.
or just straight up deny about ourselves.
It's not all negative, though. I mean, yeah, it's those parts of ourselves that we try to keep hidden, but the shadow can be a source of, well, incredible potential for growth, too. It's about acknowledging all of who we are, the good, the bad, even the messy bits.
Yeah, there's that story about a man who dreamt of this shadowy figure, and it was leading him through this like dark and scary passage. And at first he was like totally terrified. But then the figure, it led him to this incredibly beautiful and peaceful place filled with light.
That's the power of the shadow. It's not about pretending it's not there, but about bringing it into the light, letting it transform.
It's like that saying, the greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Like facing our weaknesses, our fears, that's what can lead to our greatest growth.
Exactly. Embracing all of who we are, the whole package.
So we've got the shadow, and then there's also the anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine energies we all have, right?
Right. And Jung's collaborators, people like Marie-Louise von Franz, they really emphasize that these energies, they're not tied to like our biological sex. They're more like these archetypal forces. They exist in all of us, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman.
So a man can have a really strong anima, and a woman can have a really strong animus.
Exactly. And they can pop up in our dreams, sometimes as guides, leading us somewhere, but sometimes as, well, maybe maybe more negative figures if we haven't really understood or integrated them into who we are.
It's like having these inner mentors or sometimes inner critics, right?
Yeah,
Depending on how in touch we are with these energies.
that's a great way to put it. And how these energies show up in dreams, well, that can give us some really valuable insights into our relationships with other people, but also our relationship with ourselves.
Jung and his buddies seem super interested in the concept of the self, too. It's like this striving for wholeness, the integrating of all the different parts of ourselves, like the shadow, the anima animus.
Right, the self represents like our potential for wholeness. Think of it like a seed, and it's got all the information it needs to grow into this magnificent tree.
So it's like our truest selves, the most authentic us, just waiting to be discovered.
And it often appears in dreams in symbolic form, wise figures, powerful animals, or symbols of unity like those mandalas.
Speaking of mandalas, there's that story about a woman and herself appeared in a dream as a deer. It's in the source material we have.
Yeah, such a powerful image. It really gets at the interconnectedness of everything and how the self can, transcend the individual and connect us to something way bigger.
Okay, so how do we even begin to connect with this self? I mean, how do we even start this journey of individuation, as Jung called it?
Well, dreams can be our guides. They can offer us a peek into those unconscious patterns, the strengths we don't even know we have, our weaknesses, and they can point us in the direction of wholeness.
So it's not like a quick fix, right? It's a lifelong process of self-discovery.
Exactly. And it's going to be different for everyone. There's no one right way to do it. But by paying attention to our dreams, working with those symbols and archetypes they show us, well, that's how we start to unravel the mysteries of our own minds and move towards a more authentic, more fulfilling life.
Wow, this has been a really incredible overview of Jungian dream analysis, I have to say. But I'm so ready to dive into some specific examples now.
Absolutely. In part two, we'll explore how Jung and his colleagues actually went about interpreting dreams and how they used those interpretations to help people understand themselves better and navigate their lives.
Stick with us, Dream Explorers. We'll be right back after a short break. All right, so welcome back, Dream Explorers. In part one, we got into how Carl Jung saw dreams as, well, messages from the unconscious, these windows into all these universal archetypes. But how did he actually interpret them? Like, was there a method to the madness?
Jung, he wasn't about one-size-fits-all dream dictionaries or anything like that. He really stressed how important it was to understand the individual dreamer, their own unique context.
So no cheat sheet for decoding those crazy dream symbols, huh?
Not exactly, but he did have a framework for making sense of dreams. One of the key things, one of his main ideas was this concept of, well, compensation.
Compensation. Okay, what does that mean when we're talking about dream analysis?
Imagine like a seesaw, right? One side goes up, the other side goes down. Jung noticed that dreams often work to kind of balance out the attitudes and behaviors, the things we do and think in our waking lives.
So let's say, like, I don't know, super focused on logic and reason all day long. My dreams might be all about emotions and crazy imagery to compensate.
Perfect example. It's like our dreams are trying to nudge us towards being more whole, well-rounded.
So they're not telling us we're wrong or anything, just showing us like another perspective, filling in those gaps.
Exactly. They're showing us the flip side, those parts of ourselves we might be like sweeping under the rug.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could be helpful for understanding ourselves better. Like our dreams are giving us feedback, kind of like a personal coach.
Yeah, and the insights can be super profound. Jung talked about this one case. There was this guy, really successful in his career, always pushing for more control, more achievement. But his dreams were filled with chaos, with vulnerability, loss.
Sounds like his unconscious was trying to get his attention.
It was. His dreams were reflecting this deep fear of losing control, this need to let go that he wasn't facing when he was awake.
So it wasn't about weakness, it was actually a chance to grow.
Absolutely. By recognizing these unconscious fears, well, he could start to like integrate them, bring them into his personality in a healthier way. It wasn't about giving up his ambition, but finding a better balance.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But these compensations, they're not always about negative stuff.
Right. Sometimes dreams might compensate by like turning up the volume on something positive, something we might be missing.
Like someone who's feeling creatively stuck. Maybe their dreams are full of vibrant colors in these crazy fantastical scenarios.
Exactly. Our dreams can be incredibly resourceful, They can show us what we're capable of creatively. even when we're feeling totally blocked in real life.
Wow, it really makes you appreciate the power of dreams. They're not just random noise, they're packed with information.
And remember, it's not just about single symbols, it's about the whole field, the themes that emerge from the dream. Jung was convinced that dreams speak in symbols, and it's up to us to work with those symbols and figure out their meaning.
This is fascinating. But how do you know if you're interpreting it right? Could you get lost in all that symbolism?
That's why Jung thought working together was so important. It wasn't about the analyst, forcing their interpretation. It was about having a dialogue, discovering together.
So it's a partnership, the analyst and the dreamer working side by side.
Exactly. The analyst is more like a guide, helping the dreamer navigate the landscape of their own unconscious.
I keep thinking about that example, that white monkey on a pedestal. It just sounds so weird.
Right. It was from a dream this middle-aged man had. Seemed like he had it all. Success, loving family, financial security. But he was deeply unhappy, unfulfilled.
So maybe the white monkey was this sense of emptiness.
Well, we can't know for sure without knowing more about the man, his own personal associations. The important thing is that this strange, seemingly random image, it got him thinking, reflecting, and that ultimately led him to understand himself better.
So it's not about finding the perfect answer. It's about using the dream as like a springboard for self-discovery.
That's a great way to put it. Dreams are these invitations to explore those hidden parts of ourselves.
And Jung didn't just focus on single dreams, right? He was also really into those recurring themes, myths and symbols that pop up in cultures all over the world throughout history.
Absolutely. He thought these universal patterns, they were evidence of something he called the collective unconscious, like this shared pool of human experience we all tap into.
Like the hero's journey, right?
Yeah.
That story we see in myths, fairy tales, even our own lives sometimes.
And it shows up in dreams too. People who are going through like big life changes, transitions, often dream about quests, fighting dragons, overcoming obstacles. These dreams are reflecting their own internal struggles and triumphs.
So by seeing those archetypal patterns, we can start to understand our own personal experiences in a bigger context.
Exactly. And that can be really empowering, knowing we're not alone in our struggles, that these challenges, they're part of being human.
It's like realizing we're all in this together, writing our own little chapters in the big story of humanity.
And speaking of archetypes, we mentioned the trickster before, that mischievous figure who loves to shake things up.
I bet meeting a trickster in a dream would be quite the experience.
The trickster, they can be tricky, deceptive, chaotic, even a little cruel sometimes, but they have a really important role in how we develop psychologically. They challenge those rigid ways of thinking, make us see things in new
So
ways.
they're like the rebels of the unconscious, the ones who come in and turn everything upside down.
Exactly. And sometimes we need that kind of disruption to break free from old patterns and embrace something new. Jung's colleagues talked about how these trickster figures, they could show up as clowns, pranksters, or people who just break all the rules.
Like they're saying, hey, it's okay to not take yourself so seriously,
Yeah.
right? Lighten up, play with different perspectives.
And that playfulness can be so freeing. It opens us up to new ways of seeing ourselves in the world.
So the trickster's not all about chaos. It's about reminding us to be open to new possibilities, to question the rules.
Exactly. It's about welcoming the unexpected and finding the humor even in the midst of challenges.
This is also fascinating. It's like discovering a whole new way of understanding, well, ourselves, the world, through dreams.
And it all comes back to that idea of individuation, that lifelong journey of becoming who we really are. Jung believed that by working with our dreams, by really listening to those messages from the unconscious, we can move towards wholeness, find our own unique place in the world.
This has been, well, an incredible journey so far.
Hmm.
And I'm excited to explore one more piece of Jung's work, this idea of the self.
Yes, the self, that archetype of wholeness and integration we talked about a bit earlier. It's a complex idea, a little elusive, but we'll do our best to unpack it in part 3 and look at how it shows up in dreams.
Stick with us, Dream Explorers. We're about to go even deeper into the deepest parts of the unconscious. Welcome back to the deep dive into, well, into Jung and dream analysis. We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? We talked about how Jung and his peeps saw dreams as like a path to understanding. I mean, not just ourselves, but the whole human experience, right?
Right. We talked about how dreams can be like those balancing acts, compensating for what's off in our waking lives, showing us the fuller picture.
And those archetypes, those patterns of human experience that show up, well, everywhere. They can help us like crack the code, right? The language of dreams.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But there's this one archetype, one that we've mentioned, but it's a bit mysterious and kind of powerful, the self.
Right. The self, yeah. It's like the ultimate goal of individuation, isn't it? That journey towards wholeness.
Jung, he saw the self as the center, the very core of the psyche. It's the archetype of wholeness, that possibility of bringing together all the different parts of ourselves.
So it's not just about like facing our shadow or bringing in the anima and animus. It's bigger than that.
It is. It's about moving towards this sense of unity, becoming the most authentic version of ourselves. It's a lifelong journey, a striving for something that, well, maybe we never completely reach, but it's always there. It's worth it.
It sounds almost, I don't know, spiritual.
It is in a way,
Yeah.
but it's not about like specific religious beliefs or anything. It's more about connecting with a deeper sense of purpose, a sense of meaning, of belonging to something bigger than ourselves.
Okay, so how does this relate to dreams? How do we even know when the self is showing up?
Well, the self, it usually pops up in symbolic form. It might be these wise figures, or animals that have this sense of power and peace. Sometimes geometric shapes, those mandalas, they represent unity.
You mentioned mandalas before. What's the deal with them?
Mandalas, they're circular, and they often have these intricate patterns, these motifs that repeat. And they've been used for centuries in different spiritual traditions, like for meditation, contemplation. And Jung, he was fascinated by them because, well, he saw them as a way to picture the self, this striving for wholeness and integration.
I'm remembering that story from the source material, that woman whose self appeared as a deer in her dream.
Right. Yeah. In that dream, the deer seemed to represent this interconnectedness, like linking all living things. It was a powerful symbol of her own journey toward wholeness and her awareness of her place in the bigger web of life.
So it's not just about seeing the symbol and being like, oh, there it is, the self. It's more about what it makes you feel, what you learn from it.
Exactly. The self isn't something you can like grasp with your mind. It's something you experience, you feel it, sense it, and dreams, they can give us a glimpse, a taste of that.
So if we're paying attention, if we're like really looking for those symbols and how they make us feel, that's how we get a sense of our own journey towards wholeness.
You got it. And remember what the dreamer thinks about the symbol, their own associations, their key. What a symbol means to one person might be totally different for someone else.
Makes sense. No dream dictionaries allowed here, huh?
Exactly. Each dream, it's unique, just like each person is unique.
I love this whole concept of the self, but it's also like kind of intimidating. How do we even start connecting with something so big, so mysterious?
Well, paying attention to our dreams, that's one way. They can be these little clues, insights, even guidance on the path. But it's also about how we live our lives, being more conscious, more intentional.
So it's not just like what's happening in our heads. It's about actually doing stuff in the world.
Absolutely. Jung believed that individuation, it included engaging with the outside world, not just the inside. It's about finding our place in the community, sharing what makes us special, living in a way that aligns with what we believe in.
In dreams, they can help us figure out what those values are, how to live them better.
Exactly. They can shine a light on our strengths, the things we need to work on, the potential we haven't even tapped into yet. They can challenge us to step outside of our comfort zones and really be who we are.
This has been an incredible deep dive, I gotta say. We went from the basics of how Jung saw dreams to this complex idea of the self.
And really, we've only just scratched the surface. Jung's work, it's so rich, so many layers. There's always more to explore.
But I hope this deep dive has given you some new tools, some new ways of thinking to start exploring your own dreams, your own journey of individuation.
Maybe it's inspired you to keep a dream journal, or read some of Jung's work, or even find a therapist who specializes in this approach.
As we wrap things up here, I'm left with this thought. Jung and his friends, his collaborators, they believe that understanding our dreams, it could be the key to unlocking our potential, to living these really fulfilling lives.
And I think that's something worth remembering as you go on your own journey of self-discovery. Remember to pay attention to those quiet whispers, those symbols and stories in your dreams. They just might be, well, they might be guiding you towards a more authentic, a more meaningful life.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Jungian dream analysis. And until next time, sweet dreams and happy exploring.